And welcome to another edition of Spits and Suds. So glad you can join us. I'm Gavin Spittle of 105.3 The Fan. It's a great day when our guest can join us. He is one of our co-hosts of Spits and Suds. He runs EP Ringside, and he does it so well. He also has his own Substack called Shap Shots. He's in a movie called The Late Game Movie. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a terrific hockey movie featured on Amazon. You can purchase it. Also, he is an author of the latest book, We Win Here, with our friend Stephen Meserve of 100 Degree Hockey, and that details the franchise of the Texas Stars, which, by the way, if you haven't had the chance, go to at 100 Degree Hockey, and Stephen posted a terrific article on the growth and success of the Texas Stars that are owned by the Dallas Stars with sellouts and different things. So it's a really cool article showing the success, not just of the Dallas Stars, but what they've done to the Texas Stars. So that's a nice read. And we welcome in, of course, our Spits and Suds NHL insider, Sean Shapiro. How are you, buddy?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good. I'm happy to be here. It's a good week. We've got Halloween this week with the kids and everything like that. So it's a good week to be talking hockey on a Monday.
Nice. And if anyone wants to dress up as cup-winning goalie Sean Shapiro, they can, right?
I guess so. I guess so. You could go. You could. I don't know if you'll get the. We actually had like replica jerseys available on the Late Game website. I don't think they'll get there. I don't think you'll get it in time for Wednesday, or Thursday. But give it a. But need some long-term planning. That's where
I like that. Buying a replica jersey and putting Shapiro on the back. I like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
that would be. That's pretty badass. So the Stars off to Finland, and I wanted to start there because you were kind of ahead of the game, and when Miro Heiskanen was first becoming a Dallas Star, you actually went to Finland and did a deep dive. And I thought that was really cool. And I'm sure you have some great memories of your time in Finland.
Yeah. Obviously Stars play there this week, and it's for the Stars history, it's kind of impossible to tell the history of the Stars without the Finnish connection. Obviously in recent years with three players on the team, Miro Heiskanen, Roope Hintz, Esa Lindell, but between Yuri Letinen's ties to the franchise, going all the way back to Kari Taco, the Stars director of European scouting, who played for the North Stars a long time ago and has continued to work for the franchise over in Finland. I went over there now, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago now, whatever it was, and it was really good. It was nice to. For me, it was a great trip to take. Like, this event is going to be great, right? Like, there's the official NHL event, but I was really happy to go over there at a time where it wasn't the pomp and circumstance of a big event. I really liked going over there, and I rented a car and just drove around the country, went to random rinks, basically went all hockey writer pretending to be a travel writer, and had a blast. And it's kind of cool to see how the hockey culture is intertwined into Finnish culture, between just the way the community aspect of how the teams are run, how the rinks are built, the way they run their programs. It was a really cool thing to see in person. And so if you're one of the listeners who happens to be going to Finland this week to go see those games, enjoy it. It's a beautiful country. Go check out a sauna, get some good coffee. You'll have a blast.
And our own Robert Tiffin has made the trip. So
yes.
Excited. I think there are two people that are great follows this week. Mike Heika of DallasStars.com, the senior writer, who's been got to give him a lot of stick taps for his love of Spits and Suds and jumping on the program like he does, as well as Robert. So follow those two guys as far as pictures. I love Robert's humor. I think it's wonderful, and I love his new website, and you can find all of that at Robert Tiffin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does a great job, and I talked to Robert a little bit before he flew over there, so he's going to do a great job over there, and I think he's got. So earlier today, he was working from media availabilities over there already, and it's give him he's done a great job with that site. I think it's starsthoughts.com. So give Robert a follow, and that's kind of a must read if you are if you're looking for if you're trying to stay up to date on Stars stuff in general. Like you and I, Gavin, have talked about this quite a bit. I'm a big believer in a media ecosystem where you read multiple voices, and Robert's a really big voice that you should be reading if you're interested in Stars things.
Since we've really taken this podcast to new levels, one of the things I absolutely love is how many other outlets now are talking Stars. And part of it has to do with the success of the team, Sean, but it is great that Stars fans now have kind of a multitude of outlets in which they can just gather information from. And obviously this is one of them, but there are a lot of them. And I think that's really good. And it's showing kind of the growth of coverage of DFW hockey, because a short time ago, you and I were talking that there were a couple outlets that dropped off, and Spits and Suds. And, we were kind of one of the only ones, along with Mike, Heike, and Razor do their podcast, but there really wasn't a lot. And now we've seen some recent growth. So it's good.
Yeah, it'll never be just like, for example, it's the quote unquote, and I want to say this as kindly as possible, right? Like, it'll never be to the spot where it was when you had two full-time beat writers traveling with the team independently, right? And that was when I was there traveling independently. Matt DeFranks was traveling independently with the Dallas Morning News, and I don't think we'll ever get back to that, but we've gotten closer. We've gotten some smart voices talking about the team. We've gotten some coverage that has really enhanced. We talked about Robert. We've seen what and Taylor Baird continues to do a great job through both NHL.com and her outlet. And it's I think the big thing for me when it comes to understanding media coverage, and I think we also have to give the Stars a little bit of credit, is the team hasn't stifled a new age media market, right? So there's some places where Robert might not be getting a credential. There's some NHL teams that wouldn't credential someone who wasn't working for so-called legacy media. So I think the team also deserves a little bit of credit here for not putting up some not building some trap doors that they definitely could have, and so we're all better for it now. So
yeah. So on the ice, something that you and I have talked about is the lack of quick starts. And it's been happening for a while. In the last two games at Boston, and they actually got off to a good start against Washington as well, but the game at Boston, and specifically the game Saturday night, I thought they came out flying as well. So two things. The quick starts are happening on a more regular basis this year. And the other thing is struggling at home last year, really nice start in the barn this year.
Yeah, it's and there still have been some slow starts, but it's not nearly as
Edmonton.
I don't want to go exactly. I don't want to go as far as say it's been solved or anything like that, because there's and we talked quite a bit about the entire Jamie Benn era has been built on slow starts and everything like that. So not solved, but it's been better lately. And you look at kind of going into Finland, we talk a lot about the trip, but one of the big things is that you're playing a pretty damn good team that won a Stanley Cup last year and has a history for starting fast. So that's going to be important. Like, we talk a lot about the trip to Finland and the off ice stuff, but on ice, you're playing a team where they punish teams early in games, so you got to be ready for it.
Yeah, you certainly do. And on the news of Jake Oettinger signing that long-term deal, Sean, it kind of got me thinking about Wyatt Johnston. One, thank you for the Spits and Suds listeners that reached out both to you and I and said, well, you guys nailed as far as the yearly salary. And so I started doing some digging as far as Wyatt Johnston. He will be a restricted free agent at the end of this year, and it'll be interesting if he signs a bridge or if he goes long-term. So here are some of the long-term contracts that have been signed, and I think these are pretty good comparables, and I think you and I can come up with a number from these three, and there are some others. Dylan Guenther recently, 8-year, 57.14. That's 7.14 per year. Matty Beniers, drafted the same year, 7 years, 50 million. That's 7.14 as well. Now, Lucas Raymond for the Detroit Red Wings, who you're very familiar with, signed an 8-year deal at 64.6 million, and that's just over 8 million, 8,075,000 to be exact. So am I correct by saying Wyatt Johnston, as of right now, 5 points in 9 games? I think a lot of Stars fans would like to see more goals, but I mean, still, we have to remember last year he came on in January, and after that was one of the best players on the ice. I'm thinking 8.2, 8.3 million.
Yeah, for me, I think we often pull the Beniers one is often one that we compare just because they were taken in the same draft. But to me, Raymond is the better comp as far as value. And Raymond making the just over 8 million on the 8-year deal he signed that he signed through 2031, 32. I think that's kind of around the number that Johnston is going to on a long-term deal is going to kind of get and demand. He has a chance to, and I think so much of the comp sometimes comes from a statistical side by side is sometimes comes down to the numbers, right? And right now, Johnston is about 5 points in 9 games, coming off a 65-point season. Raymond's got 8 points in 9 games for Detroit, coming off a 72-point season. So, I think that Raymond deal is probably right around the sweet spot for what Johnston is going to have earned and makes most sense value-wise to me. Maybe he pushes for a little bit here or there, but I think also where the Stars are, being in Texas, part of the long-term build to win, I don't imagine Johnston pushing for too much more. So 8.1 million is probably a nice fair round estimation for Johnston to sign at some point.
Mm-hmm.
If it indeed is the long term and not the bridge.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would love to see him on a long term, I think, but
I think that would be very smart. I think that would be very smart.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think it would. Okay. So for a week, Sean, I look like a genius with my Utah pick. Now I will say the following. I did not, obviously you cannot anticipate injuries, and the injuries on the defense, which I think is their strongest aspect of the team, but losing Dursey and losing Marino, that stuff, that hurts. So Utah has kind of fallen off, but we do have to spend a moment and talk about the plus 20 goal differential in the undefeated Winnipeg Jets with some balanced scoring. And they've come out of the gates like, wow, this is, and I think one of the things that makes you say, wow, is it's very unique to see the Winnipeg Jets. We all know their defense. We know their defensive strategy in the past. We know about Connor Hellebuck, but now they're getting some balanced scoring as well.
Yeah. I mean, they were getting a bit of it last year too. Now, I don't think you expected, because they've got Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers.
Yeah.
I think even Neil Pionk is close to double-digit points for right now. So
yeah, Perfetti's playing well, which is good.
Yeah, Perfetti's been good. Niederreiter's been good there. It's impressive what they've done to start the year, and obviously they're a team that I think is a good example of, you took a little bit of that structure and stability they had before, and they didn't lose it, but they were willing to add a little bit more risk to their game. And I'm a big believer that you have to play with some risk to win. I know people say in the playoffs things get tough and you have to be strong defensively, and that's true. But I think you have to play with some risk in your game, and I think the Jets have done a good job of keeping that structure but also playing with a little bit more risk that allows them to really like. That's how you get a Nemestikov's got 6 points. I'm looking at their stats right now. You got Adam Lowry with 7 points. That's how you get this well rounded, because you have a little bit of that across the board mentality and understanding from the coach that you can
Yeah.
take some risk to create.
Yeah, and we knew that Hellebuck would be the starting goalie unless something injury or something for the Four Nations. And it was just a question, Jake Oettinger obviously had a lot of incentive because he wants to be a part of that. But as good of a season as Ottinger's having, it is fascinating then to pull up Hellebuck and say, wow. I mean, certainly early Vezina, but
I'd actually say right now, I'd actually say Hellebuck has outplayed. I mean, Ottinger's been better than Hellebuck so far this year. I think we got to give Ottinger a little bit more credit. He's one of the reasons the Stars are where they are is he's been as good as he's been. And so I think nothing away from Hellebuck, but that to me, I think Oettinger deserves some praise right now. And if you were to pick a starting goalie for USA for Four Nations based off play over the last 2 weeks, I couldn't fault you if you picked Oettinger. So
yeah,
that's credit to Jake right now.
What did you think? And obviously it turned out well, but interesting in Boston, took everyone by surprise playing Casey DeSmith. DeBoer explained it after the game and went into it in that if DeSmith didn't play in that game, when would you play him? Because you have the break with Finland. So you were talking about 2 weeks of non-Casey DeSmith, but also brought up the point, and honestly, he deserves to be in there because of his recent play. And I thought it was really interesting because Jake Oettinger has Boston ties, but then you think about it, and Casey DeSmith probably has tighter Boston ties because Rochester, New Hampshire is where he's from, and that's just outside of Massachusetts. I used to spend summers in Rochester, New Hampshire, so I'm very familiar with it. So I think, that was kind of fascinating. And just the play of Casey DeSmith this year, we talk about Oettinger, rightfully so, but DeSmith's been fantastic as well.
Yeah, I mean, to Pete's point, right? Like, if you weren't going to play him in that game, he was going to go almost 2 weeks between starts because he's going to start a game in Finland, right? Like, they're gonna have the back-to-back in Finland. I'm going to assume, we don't know for sure, but I'm going to assume Oettinger is going to start Friday, and then DeSmith will start Saturday. So when you know that's with the break and everything like that, it's kind of a. I thought they might go Oettinger in Boston, then DeSmith in the game on, and then go DeSmith this past Saturday to just kind of do that, but against a Chicago team that's not as good. But I don't mind it, and part of getting Jake Oettinger to be the best Jake Oettinger is going to be in the playoffs is having Casey DeSmith get those 30-something starts. So you got to do it. So
yeah. Memorable returns in the NHL over the years. We think of Gretzky returning to Edmonton, and tonight certainly will be one of them on the list as Steven Stamkos returns back to Tampa after a real tough start. Nashville is now on the move, so it should be a fascinating game. I'm sure the standing O will last for numerous minutes, and rightfully so. So it should be an emotional night in Tampa tonight.
Man, I'm really interested to see his reception. Like, it's going to, obviously there's going to be a lot of cheers and everything like that. It's interesting because it's like he would have stayed in Tampa if he had the choice, but it was, so it will be interesting to see how it'll be an emotional video, I'm sure, and they'll have everything like that. So, I do think from a Predators perspective, it's nice to get this one out of the way early, right? Like sometimes those those things that take a while can, I don't know, they can sometimes steal thunder that you don't need them to be taking. So I think from a Nashville perspective, it's nice to get this out of the way. I think Stamkos is probably going to get some nice closure having it happen, and then it'll be a normal game after it happens. But it's going to be kind of odd to start, and it's going to be odd. It's still odd to watch Steven Stamkos play for another team. So it's going to be even weirder to see him against Tampa.
It is. So I thought of an interesting question for you on Saturday night. I was doing the post-game show, and the 3 stars were listed. And I know you've been a part of naming 3 stars. And I know that a lot of times. I mean, let's be honest. I think it caters towards the home team sometimes. But I thought Mrazek, the way he played on Saturday night, playing a back-to-back and playing in 3 games in a row, I think Chicago would have been down at least 2-3 had he not played so well. I love him as a goalie, but at the same time, I thought he deserved one of the 3 stars. Granted, I thought the Stars that got it, but tell us what goes into, take us behind the curtain as far as what goes into picking the 3 stars.
Yeah, so it's in Dallas. It is essentially with 7 minutes. They basically have to be turned in with about 7 minutes left in the game. So that's something that's you have to remember. I believe it was. I'm looking at the game from the other night. I believe it was Michael Dixon who did it this time. So it's a one media member's picked, and they do it from. And with about 7 minutes left, you have to turn in your 3 stars. You can have caveats where, like, if it's a close game, or you want to. Or you're like, hey, if it goes to overtime, let's add this. I want it to be this guy instead. So you can do that, but the 3 stars of the game effectively are picked like before the game itself is over, which can make it difficult. And it sometimes can, like, for the case of Mrazek, right? So he's let up. At the point he's got 26, finished with 26 saves on 29 shots. He was good, but you put in that 3 star and you have him in there and he lets up a goal in the last 5 minutes or whatever. And all of a sudden, like, 4 goals on 29 shots doesn't look really good.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden. So I didn't have a problem with, I thought Dallas I didn't have an issue with the 3 stars that were chosen. I thought there was they're not easy to pick, and that's the thing that I think people have to give a little bit of grace to the people picking them, because they are, if you're trying to do it objectively, you could be there forever. Or there's other times where some teams claim media members pick it, but it's really just a PR pick by the PR staff, and it becomes even more of that. So I don't know. 3 stars are a cool part of it. It's one of those funny things, Gavin, where it's like it's a fun part of hockey, like history that we do it and everything. But it is weird that they end up on the game sheet, because, like,
yes,
it's everything else on the game, and everything else on the game sheet is actual data.
Yes,
right, like, not objective. Like, I'm sorry, everything else is unobjective data.
Yeah.
How many shots, how many penalty minutes, and then there's one thing where we're going to put one person's opinion in the bottom little box on the game sheet. So it's a funny thing about
it.
Hockey.
It is
not a bad way, just funny. Yeah.
No, it is definitely a fascinating part of hockey. We do definitely need to mention as well, on NHL.com all week long is a guest blogger, Esa Lindell from Finland. And he's blogging about the team and his home country of Finland. And that made me say, you know what? Interesting. We talked off season about how will the loss of Tanev kind of affect Esa Lindell. And we haven't spent a lot of time talking about Esa Lindell on Spits and Suds, but he's been wonderful this year, Sean. I mean, he just, it's a very fair contract, especially with the way that he's been playing. And just this defensive core, it's fascinating because you do lose Tanev, and it still is early in the season. But there are certainly strengths in numbers and depths on this Stars team.
I thought he was really good too against Chicago on Saturday. I mean, I thought in the first period there was obviously had the assist on the Dadonov goal, but he also has the makes the play, which I thought was a rough penalty. I didn't like the penalty call, but he makes the play at the end of the first period against Bedard, where he gets called for the penalty, but it was
a bad
he does
penalty.
that was a bad penalty. I thought the same thing when on Heiskanen later in the game too, which I thought was a rough call as well. So I thought he's been good. He's kind of stepped up. There was a lot of question about what's going to happen with this defense after Tanev was left and everything. And to the Stars' credit, and to Lindell's credit, and to what Dumbo's done, and all these other things, the defense hasn't been the issue. It's been so it's full credit to several players, but like yes, I think Lindell's been good.
Yeah. And the other night, the Stars made a move, and Maverick Bourque sat for the night. And Pete DeBoer said it wasn't based on performance, just getting guys in. And I kind of like that because, young player, and he has to know the competition is there. And, as you've mentioned, Dadonoff's been terrific this year. And you went, we talked about it on the post-game show, and I'm like, okay, so if Bourque played, who do you want to sit that's not playing well? And I think that's one of the cool features of this Stars team is that, you'd like to see some more scoring, obviously, but pretty much everyone that's in the lineup playing pretty good right now.
Yeah, and I didn't mind Bourque coming out, actually. I think Bourque is going to get there. I wrote about it on Indie Magazine a week ago or whatever it was. But I don't mind the people sometimes get very attached to a young player getting scratched and thinking it means the end of the world and everything. And I think sometimes taking a second to reset, watching the game from up top can be a benefit. And I didn't mind it with Bourque the other night. So I think he'll play in Finland. They'll probably use everyone. They'll probably use everyone here and all of this. It's I think with Bourque, some patience is required, but he's also going to have to start earning it too at the same time. And having him take a scratch doesn't get in the way of the longer plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And once again, it shows that depth. And I know we've kind of talked about Gavin White on this program, but to me, that's an example. Well, just for the simple fact, Sean, that he played 46 games last year for Texas, and now he's playing in the ECHL for Idaho. But to me, that shows the depth that, you have to fight your way to play, not just in Dallas, but in Texas as well.
Yes. It's Gavin White couldn't crack the AHL roster this year too. So that is a credit to the depth. It's also I'm trying not to. I'm not going down the. I am.
Be careful. Gavin White's mother follows me on Twitter. Be careful.
I'm going to plead the fifth on this one right now.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying players that were regularly in the lineup last year are now not playing on a regular basis, and I think that shows the depth of this. The depth of this organization, and to have a few players go with them on the Finn trip, I think is great too, because those guys are ready if you have to go. I just think it's really interesting. And let's end with this, because you talk to Jim Nill on a regular basis, and it seems like a while ago where Jim Nill talked about stepping down. And has there been any development with that, Sean, or are we just kind of when it's ready, it's ready, but right now it's full steam ahead? Because I just feel like this Jim Nill we're getting right now has about 5 years left.
Yeah, I think when Jim Nill steps down, it's not even going to be a pure step down. I've said this on this program before. I truly believe it will be very similar to what's happening in St. Louis, where Doug Armstrong is the GM right now, but he's essentially Alexander Steen is the next GM, and Doug Armstrong is moving to this president of hockey operations position. And so I think at some point the Stars will identify who they want to be Nill's successor and the next GM. And if the Stars need to make the move then so that they can get that person, and then just promote Jim Nill to president of hockey operations and they work together for a little bit, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And the name that I often come up to this is Rich Peverley, right?
Yep.
It wouldn't surprise me at some point. another NHL team is going to ask to interview Rich Peverley for their GM job.
Yeah.
And that's when the Stars are going to have as an organizational decision of like, okay, is it time to maybe give this role to Rich Peverley in Dallas and just basically and effectively name Jim the president of hockey operations?
Right. Yeah. I could see that happening. I think that's very fair. And it's just, we have a good thing going and we just want to keep it, going. It's been a good ride thus far. And, some games you struggle, obviously, but for the most part, I mean, I think that win in Boston was a nice statement game. And I know that Boston isn't the Boston of years past. Oh, a quick one on that. You think Jim Montgomery returns in Boston next year?
Do you think they're playing into the second round of the playoffs this year?
With the interdivisional playoff setup that they have right now, I would say no. Because
I think no. I think Jim Montgomery has to at least reach the second round of the playoffs to be, because I think the job, and Gavin, you know this as someone who's lived up there and understands it, the culture of what the Bruins are and everything like that. Regular season success doesn't mean much when you're not getting the job done in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So from a Boston perspective, I think they have to win at least one round for him to not be a lame duck, for him to get another contract there.
I do think if he gets let go, he'll be picked up. That's just my
opinion. Will. I mean, yeah. It's like there's the coaching carousel is just like once you're in it, you can. Everyone kind of. How many teams has Pete DeBoer coached, right?
Yeah.
Like once you get that job on the resume, it's much easier to get another one.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at we forget that Cassidy got fired in Boston. So I mean, I mean, markets like that, they want change and they want it immediately, and a lot of times you can't change the players. But you are a beast, my friend. Enjoy this week. I think it's a really cool week to watch some other games in the NHL. And at the same time, get ready for Stars on Friday and Stars on Saturday. And it's going to be a real cool look, just in everything about it. You mentioned that you've been to different stadiums throughout Finland, just even the difference of the arenas and how it will look on television and Victory Plus will be fascinating to see.
Yeah, and this one is, if you are one of our listeners who happens to be going over there, see if you can see another game over there too. See if you can go find either an Ilves game or a Jokerit game, or see if you can go see another game as well, just so you can get the full European hockey experience, because this will be a cool atmosphere, but it is going to be an NHL game in Europe. And so it's not going to be, but for the full fanaticism of European hockey, if you're going over there and you're listening, do yourself a favor, go see a Liga game as well.
That's awesome. He is our NHL insider. Once again, you can support Sean by subscribing to his Substack, which is at Shapshots, or just go to Substack and you can find him. The name of the book is called We Win Here. Never too early to order a Christmas present for that Stars fan in your family. Also, EP Rinkside, which he does a great job of. D Magazine, when you see Sean put an article out, make sure you click. And that's the same for Robert Tiffin, as well as David Castillo. And the Late Game movie is also a terrific take, and that supports Sean as well. Thank you so much, Beast. We'll talk to you again soon.
Always fun, Gavin. I appreciate it. And enjoy the week, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to do it for another edition of Spits and Suds. Hey, listen, folks, we're having a record October, and we're closing out in a big way with Sean and more. So thank you so much. And just remember, you can subscribe to this podcast, and it makes it easier. So it just goes right to your phone or goes right to your tablet. And you can also leave reviews. We love reading the reviews, and we love improving upon things. And anyone that joins this program, you could always reach out to them, but I suggest you follow them. And, you can always hit me up at GJ Spittle with your suggestions. Your feedback after the games has been tremendous for post-pod shows. For Sean Shapiro, I'm Gavin Spittle. Have a great day, everyone.